It's the final countdown to the NHL playoffs, and it's time to start preparing for war.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Locked On NHL Power Rankings. I am Nick Zararis, joined by my co-host Hunter Hodes. Today, we are going to be talking all about the last few weeks of the NHL regular season. But first, got to remind everybody, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today's show, we are going to touch on the power rankings themselves. We've got the teams ranked 1 through 32, and then we are going to bounce around the 16 teams that are currently seated in playoff spots over the final two segments of the show, with something we're worried about for each of those teams. Hunter, we got 10, 11, 12 games remaining for most of the teams around the league. We've got a good grasp on 15 of the 16 playoff teams across both conferences. As far as the power rankings themselves, what jumped out to you the most?
Honestly, nothing really major jumped out at me when I looked at these. I mean, I'm not surprised that the Florida Panthers are at number 1 on our power rankings. They've been arguably the best team in the league throughout the season. I still think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, especially right now. Colorado being at number 2, I'm not surprised either. Right now, I have the Avalanche as my top team to win the Stanley Cup this year, especially if they can get Landeskog back at some point in the playoffs, whether that's the first round or the second round. They're going to be even deadlier than they are right now. They've just been firing on all cylinders throughout the last month, 6 weeks. They're tremendous. The Rangers being at number 3, I guess if you want to call that surprising, sure, but they've also been red hot as of late. Now, whether that lasts into the playoffs, we'll have to see. That's the biggest thing when I look at the New York Rangers, right? I mean, obviously they ooze with talent. Their top 6 is tremendous. Artemi Panarin is putting together a Hart Trophy caliber season. Adam Fox is tremendous, but how much can they truly do in the playoffs? Because I'm scared, Nick, if they draw Tampa Bay in the first round, I would be a bit worried for the Rangers because Vasilevsky is starting to wake up slowly but surely over these last couple of weeks, and I think that could be scary for a Rangers team in the playoffs. That obviously they score quite a bit, but now if Vasilevsky plays to the level that we've seen him play at numerous times over the years, that could be danger hours for the Rangers. And then with the Canucks and Hurricanes rounding out the top 5, no surprises there. If I'm being picky, I would maybe move the Stars over the Hurricanes. I know the Hurricanes have been really good as of late, but I just think the Stars are playing also great hockey right now. And we've said it on this show ad nauseum that the Central playoffs are going to be flat out war. Whoever gets that 2-3 between Colorado, Dallas, or Winnipeg, good luck, because that number 1 team is probably going to be waiting for you in the second round. Whoever gets to the conference final out of one of those 3 teams, because I think one of those 3 teams will get to the conference final, they are going to be, I think, tired by that point, and there's still going to be 2 more rounds to go. So top 5, not too many big surprises. Even the top 10, to be honest, I'm not too surprised. If there's one team that I would maybe move out, another team that I would move out of the top 10, the Maple Leafs, I think maybe putting Nashville in there at number 10 makes a lot of sense. I mean, Nick, 16-0-2. They just came back from 3-0 and 4-1 down to the Vegas Golden Knights this past week. And ever since Barry Trotz canceled that U2 concert in Vegas, the Predators have not lost in regulation. I know I've said on this show that I haven't really been taking them too seriously this season, that I think they're just going to be first round fodder for whoever they play in the opening round of the playoffs. Well, I might have to walk back some of that because the Predators have been amazing for the last 4 to 6 weeks. And with UC Saros playing at a high level, it could be scary hours for a team that potentially plays the Predators in the first round. I can't believe I'm doing a total 180 about that, but that's what happens when you have an 18-game sample size where you look like one of the best teams in the league. Could that change in the playoffs? I mean, sure, especially in a 7-game series against the Canucks, the Avalanche, whoever they play, but it's been a lot of fun seeing that team play good hockey throughout the month of March. I would put them in the top 10.
All right, so looking at it now, drop down. These are Money Puck's numbers because Hockey Viz was down this morning. To win the President's Trophy, the Rangers 54%, Vancouver 17%, Dallas 8%, the Panthers 7.9%, Colorado 6.6%, Carolina 3.8%, the Bruins 1.8%, and then there's a few teams that are under 1%, but still mathematically alive to make that happen. As far as what you had mentioned, you really need to win the Central. You don't want to have to play Dallas, Winnipeg, or Colorado in the first round. So whoever wins that division is going to have a considerable advantage. Sure, you're probably going to end up playing Vegas in the first round, which isn't exactly a consolation, but that's better than playing Winnipeg and Hellebuck, or playing Dallas and the deepest forward group in the league, or playing Colorado with the presumptive Hart Trophy winner. You know, there are no easy draws in the Western Conference. You mentioned Nashville, who's had a really nice stretch as of late. Nashville, they're rolling as of late. I want to say they were, where is it? I wrote it down here. They're 8-0-2 in their last 10 games. They've got a 909 save percentage in all situations during that stretch. Excuse me, no, 931. That was Tampa Bay's number, 909. 931 save percentage in all situations.
UC Soros is woken up, baby.
In the last 10. When you get the goaltending, and Nashville's an interesting case study because they're clearly playing above their talent. You know, you go look at that forward group, and we're going to talk about them in one of the later segments of today's episode. Not overwhelming talent. They've got a lot of pros, a lot of responsible guys, but once you get past McDonough and Roman Josi, that back end really starts to lighten up. I mean, Jeremy Lauzon is fine. Tyson Barrie as an offensive specialist is fine, but that defense isn't particularly deep. I like Tommy Novak. He's been a nice find for them in that bottom six. He's a solid player, decent impacts at 5-on-5, but they don't have the requisite depth you would want to see as far as the rest of this top 10. And what we're going to touch on each of the 16 teams that are in a playoff spot in the final two segments of the show, so I won't go too in depth, but you look at it and it feels like a little bit of hedging where Florida's 4-5-1 in their last 10. They've got some bad losses in there as well. Colorado is 9-0-1 in their last 10. They're rolling. The Rangers are 18-4-1 in their last 23. They're rolling. Vancouver has had a weird stretch where they've beaten up on bad teams but haven't beaten playoff teams relatively consistently. Carolina's finding nice form. Kuznetsov looks like he's going to be, even if he's just playing above his weight for a few weeks, anything you get from that is you know, it's sugar on top, it's gravy on top, it's an added bonus. You weren't expecting to get a whole lot from him to begin with. Dallas is one of the deepest groups in the league. Boston, very top heavy, but their top end talent is very good. Ditto with Edmonton. Winnipeg, you know, they got to get Gabe Vilardi healthy. He was really important for them in coming out of the gate hot. Really good on the power play for them, scored quite a few goals. He comes back, that adds a level of depth scoring that they probably need, but Tyler Toffoli has settled in nicely there. Toronto's kind of going through it. You know, the same issues have been there all year for Toronto. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10, but they had to put Samsonov on IR. Joe Woll isn't giving anybody a whole lot of confidence, especially with that defense. You know, it's great Morgan Riley's still solid, but other than him, there's not a defenseman in that group you particularly trust. Nashville, we've talked about. Tampa Bay has really turned it on as of late. I know Kucherov won't win the Hart because McKinnon, it's McKinnon's turn, basically, is the way I would describe this year, but he's having an incredible season. I mean, this is the first time in Stamkos' entire career where he's healthy. He's going to finish under a point per game, but those two and Braden Point carrying a heavy load, ditto Victor Hedman, basically the only defenseman of note in that group. Vegas dinged up, but as dangerous and as talented of a group. LA is fine. They're playing okay right now. The Flyers, they're limping along. They played the Rangers really well on Tuesday night. That was a good showing for them, but the Flyers are just going to be happy to make the playoffs, and ditto with Washington. But that will just about do it for this first segment. We both can talk an awful lot. So we are going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and we will tackle the teams 1 through 8 in standings points. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every single game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on big upsets or a 1 seed, it is time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Want to thank everybody who's hanging out with us on this Thursday afternoon for the weekly edition of the Power Rankings. The Locked On NHL feed has the league covered every single day. Hunter, starting up at the top, as we sit currently, the New York Rangers are in first place for the entire National Hockey League. They have a 1-point lead over the Dallas Stars. They have a game in hand over the Dallas Stars. My concern for the Rangers is very straightforward. Will they score enough at 5-on-5? They're 19th in 5-on-5 goals in the entire league this season. It's really straightforward. If they score a little bit more at 5-on-5, they're going to be as dangerous as anybody. But what are they going to do to facilitate more goal scoring at even strength?
I think that's fair. My biggest worry with the Rangers, I mean, I kind of hinted at it during the first segment, right? Can this team play as good in the playoffs as they have during the regular season?
You think they might be peaking a little early?
That's always my biggest concern with them. You know, I kind of had a similar concern with the Boston Bruins last year when they were having the best regular season in NHL history, and then they go down in the first round. And with that, you know, if they play a team, for example, like the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, John Cooper is a very good coach that can shut down, I feel like, some of the Rangers' top players. Even though their defense is not that good outside of Victor Hedman, it stinks that Mikhail Sergachev is going to be.
They did it 2 weeks ago when they played on the Thursday night game. The Rangers' top six generated basically no offense, and the Lightning's top guys caved them in. We do got to keep it moving because we do have to kit all 8. So we're going to try and go as quick as we can to get through these. Number 2, the Dallas Stars. Jake Ottinger hasn't been good this year. He's 83rd in goals saved above expected. If they get goaltending that's slightly above average, I think the Stars are the best team in the NHL. They haven't gotten close to average goaltending this year, and they're the second best team in the league.
He's the same for me. If Ottinger can get at the level that we saw him play against the Flames a couple of years ago, you remember watching that series, especially. If he can get up to that level, Nick, good luck, because I don't know if anyone's beating the Stars in the playoffs. So I would agree. I'll go Ottinger for that one.
100%. He had more goals saved above expected in those 7 games than Darcy Kemper did the entire postseason when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. Insane playoff run. For the Bruins, center depth. Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha is not moving the needle for me. They've got 2 really good defensemen. Pasta and Marchand are what you expect them to be, but they just don't have the depth down the middle you need to be successful in the postseason.
They're just too top heavy for my liking, in my opinion. You brought up the center depth, obviously, but even outside of that, you know, Marchand, Pasternak, you know, Charlie Coyle, Jake DeBrusk. But outside of some of those guys, you look down their lineup a little bit. I mean, sure, Dayton Heinen's having a nice year with 15 goals, but their forward group just doesn't scare me.
No.
Like it did last year when Don Sweeney in the front office went all in. Defensively, I think they're fine. And they're a bona fide playoff team, and they still have a chance to win the President's Trophy, but they don't fully scare me overall. But if they are able to get world-class goaltending from one of Linus Ullmark or Jeremy Swayman, though, look out at least a little bit in the playoffs. But right now, their depth is what concerns me heading into the playoffs.
100% agreed with you. For me, for Vancouver, it's playoff experience. A lot of those guys have experience, but that was 3 years ago in the bubble. Demko got put on IR either yesterday or today, which that's a little bit of a concern considering how instrumental he's been in their season. I just think it's early for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they won a round, maybe even 2, but I feel like that group probably needs to gel a little bit more, and their inconsistency in the second half of the season kind of speaks to the fact that this group hasn't been together that long.
Right. I mean, I've been a big fan of the Canucks all year. That's been one of the teams that I try to watch as much as I can, just because they're so much fun to watch. Their top 6 is tremendous. But, you know, I look down that lineup a little bit. Some of their depth just doesn't fully do it for me that much.
Ilya Mikheyev's not doing it for you?
Not really. I mean, a little bit, like, even outside of them, you know.
Nils Höglander?
I think he's a fine player, but I don't think he's going to bring you that
Connor
much offense in the playoffs.
I mean, that middle 6 is not bad. I
It's
would
not
agree.
bad, but
It's not high end. That's a fair.
Right.
That's a fair.
I'm not trying to like dump on it and say like it's like the worst bottom six known to man, but I just think it concerns me a little bit heading into the playoffs. If a team is able to shut down those top two lines, they're going to have a field day, I think, beating the Canucks. And now I don't expect that to happen because I think the Canucks high end talent is very, very good. But if you are able to somehow shut down those top two lines, it should be pretty easy pickings for a team that plays them probably in the second round. I would pick Vancouver to win at least a round, but we'll have to see. And hopefully Demko is able to come back overall. If he's not healthy or is a bit banged up entering the playoffs, I'm going to be also a bit concerned overall. So that's another concern that I would have about the Canucks if he's still not 100% yet.
For the Panthers, who are fifth right now, I would say it's mileage accumulation. It's just hard to go to the Cup final consecutive seasons. It happens, but you play a lot of games. Yeah, they were able to win the one round last year in 5 games, which helped, but the miles add up, and it's just there's a lot of variance that goes into winning 4 straight playoff series, 3 playoff series like it did last year, and you're probably not going to get that kind of 1-goal game luck again. It's unlikely.
Agreed. I might get crap for this in our comments or DMs or whatever, but if there's one concern that I do have, it's just that can Sergei Bobrovsky continue this stellar season? Is he going to flame out in the playoffs? And I mean, I think it's a fair comparison. It's not a fair comparison, excuse me. I think it's a fair take to have because he's been up and down the past couple of years. I mean, he was great in the playoffs last year, Nick, but his regular season last year was not that good. Now he's had a great regular season, but is that going to continue into the playoffs? So still a little bit for me is goaltending. That's still a little bit of a concern for me with the Panthers. I love their high-end talent. They're pretty deep. Defensively, they're great. But can they get the saves from Bobrovsky? That's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on for this.
Okay, the 6th team, Colorado, wing depth. After Rantanen, the drop-off's pretty stark. You know, Lehkonen, Drouin, Nichushkin, Zach Parise. If Landeskog comes back, that becomes less of a concern, but there's a reason they went out and got a center in Casey Middlestad to try and facilitate making their wingers' lives easier. It's a deep team, but the winger depth is just not what it was 2 years ago.
I agree. I think that's pretty fair. Much like the Panthers, I gotta say I'm still worried about their goaltending. I mean, Georgiev.
I feel like that's fair for every team other than like the Rangers and Winnipeg. You could say the goaltending is a worry.
Kind of, yeah. I just think like with Georgiev, like I don't know how good he's going to be in a playoff series for them. I mean, if he's at least average, they should be fine with the level of firepower that they can put out there on any given night. But wing depth, I would say, is a fair one too. I just think I'm only going to do goaltending for the ones that I'm truly questioning. And I think for Colorado and Florida, I'm still questioning them a little bit, even though they've both had fine seasons. I just want to see them do it in the playoffs.
Carolina's next, and I wrote down the George Bush quote, "Fool me once, can't get fooled again." I've picked Carolina to win the Stanley Cup like 3 of the last 6 years. I'm not doing it again until they go on a run and make a Stanley Cup final or like go 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not believing in Carolina. I just can't do it on principle. I would rather be wrong that this is the year they went all the way than pick them again and look stupid.
I agree with you, and I'm not going to go goaltending for them, even though I easily could, Nick. You know that. What I'm going to go for Carolina is, again, what I've been saying for a while now. Their lack of a true superstar game breaker. Don't get me wrong. I love Jake Guentzel. He is a tremendous player. He's been great for Carolina. Getting Kuznetsov, I think he's been fitting in pretty well there. But you look up and down that lineup overall. Who is a true game breaker, a true superstar, elite player in that lineup? I mean, Sebastian Aho, he's having a great season. Svechnikov, when healthy, is great.
It's probably Jacob Slavin. Like, if you put a gun to my head, I would say he's probably their best and most impactful player in terms of like swinging the flow of a game. But you don't want a defenseman to be your best guy if he's not Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes. Yeah,
I just don't fully trust him enough in the playoffs to get the amount of goal scoring that they're going to need to advance to the Stanley Cup final. And part of that is also, I think, Rod Brindamore's system. They don't call them the Carolina Corsies for no reason. They are great with shot attempts per 60 minutes and getting shots on goal. But if you're able to box out their high-end talent and keep them away from the high-danger areas and clear the shooting lane so that goalies can absorb all of their point shots and not have them deflected, you are able to beat this Carolina team. The Penguins just did it earlier this week. And I think that his system, it's all gas, no brakes. But when you're able to coach against it and beat it, it's a pretty, I wouldn't say simple system, but it's easy.
There's a
and
counter. There's enough of a
it's easy
counter
enough
that
to
you know
counter.
what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last team in the first 8, Winnipeg. I think it's really straightforward. Who's their second best defenseman? Like, I like Dylan DeMello, Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk. None of those guys is number 2 on a Stanley Cup winner. Like, Josh Morrissey is genuinely good. I think he's one of the 10 best defensemen in the entire league. He's taken a real leap in his game, but I don't think they have the depth on the back end. And their forward group is maybe the deepest it's been since they went to the conference final. So maybe their forward group is good enough to balance out the lack of defensive depth, and Hellebuck is good enough to cover some mistakes, but I worry about their defense.
Defensive depth is where I would go as well. If I had to put another thing in there that you didn't really mention, it's just how they played in the playoffs last year. I mean, we all know how Rick Bowness felt about that team after the playoffs, where he was disgusted with their play through 5 games. And I mean, I just worry about that happening again, potentially. I just want to see it I want to see it be different this time compared to last year. And they'll be going up against a very good team in the first round, much like they did in the first round last year, Nick, when they played Vegas.
Yeah, I feel like them of the 3 in the Central, their first round matchup matters the most, because I feel like if they get Vegas again, I feel like they would be a lot better situated to play them this year than they were last year, because the team is a little bit deeper and Vegas is a little bit digged up. But we're going to take one more break, and then we will round out the rest of the teams who are currently in playoff spots. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And as we make our way to the final segment of today's show, thank you to everybody who is hanging out. Make sure you are subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Leave the show a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you could be so kind as to subscribe to the show over on YouTube and drop the video a like down there. Hunter, next up, Edmonton, and I wrote the same exact thing I did for Carolina. We can't get fooled again.
Yes.
Until Edmonton gets good goaltending, multiple playoff series in a row, I refuse to believe in them. They're probably going to play LA again in the first round. They can beat LA. After that, I don't know if they're well situated to beat anybody else they would play past the first round.
We won't get fooled again by the Who for the Edmonton Oilers for this one. I love their top 6. I mean, who doesn't love Edmonton's top 6? But outside of that, Nick, their forward depth, it still concerns me overall. I mean, Evander Kane, he's a good third liner, but he's been making some comments in the media about how his play has been recently. We'll see if that changes in the playoffs. I mean, Corey Perry, Ryan McLeod, okay. Derek Ryan, Matthias Janmark, Connor Brown. At least Connor Brown is starting to score a little bit more recently, but their bottom 6 doesn't really inspire that much confidence. And I want to see what level of Stuart Skinner we get in the playoffs for the Oilers. If he is able to play well, they'll have a chance to go pretty far, but I want to see it to believe it with Skinner and then the Oilers as a whole. But if I'm talking about one main concern, it's their forward depth outside of the McDavid and Draisaitl lines.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the team. The thing with Edmonton is always going to be the defense. How are they going to survive in the minutes that Ekholm and Bouchard are on the ice? Because, nobody wants to see top 4 Cody Ceci if your team's trying to go on a run. Darnell Nurse really cashed in on the Toronto division 2 years ago. He's not worth that contract. So they have 2 good defensemen, and then after that, it's very questionable. But Next up, Nashville, depth scoring. They have plenty of decent players in their bottom six, but if other teams are able to cancel out their first line, where's the rest of the goal scoring going to come from? It's really that straightforward.
I'm the same way with you. I think for Nashville, I love Philip Forsberg. He's having a great year. Ryan O'Reilly's been a really nice fit in Nashville as well. They traded for Jason Zucker only for a 6th-round pick. I like him in their forward group. But yeah, I just don't think it's deep enough to fully go on a Stanley Cup run. I think they are definitely going to at least give a team a scare in the first round, and maybe they're going to be a prime upset pick for a lot of people with the way they're playing right now and with how UC Saros has woken up. But if we're talking about a deep run for Nashville, the main concern I have as well is forward depth. I completely agree with you.
The same thing for Toronto as I wrote for Edmonton and Carolina. I will not get fooled again. Toronto is probably going to end up playing. They're probably going to end up playing the Bruins or the Panthers, neither of which is particularly easy. The Bruins, they have all the demons. Toronto is probably a more talented team than the Bruins at this point, but those are real scars, man. They lost all of those series to the Bruins in really heartbreaking fashion. Maybe it's kind of like it was last year where they need that exorcism type feeling, kind of like how the how the Red Sox had to beat the Yankees in 2004 to go on to win the World Series. Maybe the Leafs beat the Bruins and this is what inspires them to go on the run and go all the way, win the first cups in 67. I don't think this is the Toronto team to do it. They are not deep as they've been in years past. The goaltending is a massive concern.
I hate their draw. That's the first thing I can say about the Leafs. Going through one of Boston or Florida in the first round.
And then the other one in the next round.
What'd you say?
And then the other one in the next round. So no matter what, you're playing one of those two. It's
a really bad draw for them. And I love Toronto's top six, much like Edmonton's. Their other forward depth, I'm not really too, crazy about. But then defensively right now, Nick, you're telling me you're not crazy about Jake McCabe on the top pairing right now?
It's rough out there, man. I mean, McCabe, Brody, Liljegren, Lyubushkin. For hell, Connor Timmins drew back in. Connor Timmins, who's played like 20 games in 4 years as a former first-round pick. They're in a really difficult situation, Toronto. Yeah. The injury bug has really killed them. Next up, LA. I don't think they can beat Edmonton. It's that simple. They're going to play Edmonton in the first round, barring barring someone Vegas leapfrogging them, which I don't think is going to happen. They're going to have to play Edmonton again, and we've seen it 2 years in a row now. They have 1 point and 1 one game in hand on Vegas. Maybe Vegas leapfrogs them, and then they get the winner of the Central as opposed to the Canucks. But that's still not easy. I think the Kings are fine. I just don't think they have the talent to compete with those other teams.
Yeah, they keep making moves to try and close the gap, but they haven't been able to fully close that gap between the other Western Conference teams, like a Colorado, even like a Vegas, even though I know they're ahead of them, but I would still take Vegas to probably beat LA in a playoff series, Edmonton, Winnipeg, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen the Kings try and shut down McDavid and Draisaitl 2 years in a row. They've come close at times to doing it over a 7-game series, but they haven't been able to win that decisive fourth game. And even though they went out and made more moves this past offseason, I still don't think they did enough to go out and beat McDavid 4 out of 7 times in a series. No. That's, I think, my main weakness. And of course, I'll still say goaltending for the Kings. I'm not really too big.
Cam Talbot, David Rittich, that's not a great tandem.
Doesn't really inspire too much confidence in me.
No, Tampa Bay, they have 4 guys. They're going to give you a hell of a series. Brandon Hagel's a good player. They don't have the depth. It's that straightforward. Cooper's a great coach. They've got really good high-end players. High-end players and a good coach can win you maybe 3 games in a first-round series. I don't think Tampa can get out of the first round as they are right now.
I think they could potentially win a round if they get the right draw and if Cooper is able to make some tactical adjustments for whoever he's playing. But if you are able to shut down their top high-end guys and also Victor Hedman, you can have your way with that defensive group and the rest of that forward group. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to go on a big run. I think you're going to see some changes down there in Tampa this summer. But yeah, forward depth and just the rest of that defense outside of Hedman doesn't really inspire too much confidence in me.
A lot of miles. Vegas, can we stay healthy? I think if Vegas is healthy, I think they have an argument to be one of, if not the most talented groups in the entire league. They are very injured. You don't know when Stone's coming back. You don't know if Alec Martinez is going to come back. So if those guys come back into the mix, they have a real argument for the most talented roster in the entire league. But you got to get healthy.
Right. And I mean, I know everyone's going to make the joke if they do come back in the first round for game one. Oh, you can't just keep doing this. They can't keep getting away with this. But you know what?
Yes, they can.
Yeah, they can, because it's not against the rules, people. So I agree. If Vegas is able to get fully healthy for the playoffs at some point, I can easily see them winning the West. I mean, I think they can beat Colorado in a 7-game series, Nick. Even if they get Landeskog back, they can beat Dallas, Winnipeg, whoever, Vancouver especially too. That team will be scary if they can get healthy, but that's the biggest thing right now. And Vegas overall is just not playing good enough hockey, which is a bit concerning. They're lucky that the rest of the Western Conference teams behind them are just not very good this year.
Yeah, and then the last two we can lump together because I wrote the exact same thing down next to both of them. The Flyers and the Capitals, they're just happy to be here.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to say it. The Flyers, making the playoffs for them is exceeding expectations. They were never even expected to be in the playoff race this year, especially after Danny Briere went out and said, yeah, we're rebuilding. And they also sold off a couple of players at the trade deadline. Now we have to see if they can sustain this for the next 10 to 11 games. But right now, I do see them making the playoffs. Do I see them making a lot of noise in the playoffs? Probably not. I think they're probably going to be a first-round exit. And the same for Washington. I look at the Capitals, if you want to say a worry for their team, Nick, outside of a few dudes, they just don't have that many top guns. I mean, Ovechkin's waking up, which is great. Tom Wilson, I know, is suspended right now, but they keep winning without him. And when they get him back, that's still going to be scary. Oshie, when healthy, is a good second liner. John Carlson is good on their back end. Dylan Strome has been awesome for Washington this year. Charlie Lindgren is a good answer in net. But outside of some of those guys, I looked up and down that lineup. This team has almost a minus 30 goal differential this year. I mean, it's just crazy that they're even in this spot, especially after selling off a couple pretty good players at the trade deadline, including Anthony Mantha. So, yeah, I think happy to be here is great. But if we're talking about actual concerns for these two teams, I would say for both, depth. I don't think both of these teams are deep enough overall, especially at forward.
And that'll just about do it for this week's episode of the Locked On NHL Power Rankings. We've got about 2 weeks till the NHL playoffs. Buckle up. It's about to get interesting.